Hey gang, thanks for tuning back in. So I received a note through Reddit's private messaging system from another Reddit clan member. This member sent me a note with the story of how they put together their base, along with some of the design considerations, and then pictures of the base. Now I won't mention which clan it is here, but I wanted to go through and talk a little bit about the base design process and some of the things that stand out to me as far as this base is concerned. Number one, kudos for taking the time to put together a base on your own. It's no small thing, and I've mentioned this caveat earlier. There's no base that you can design that somebody can't 3-star. The trick with playing at the higher levels is it's a game of attrition. It's making sure that they take a look at the base, that you take a thoughtful approach at creating the illusion of something so that they choose a strategy that you want them to choose. Now, the easy mode, the easy button in Clan Wars is hogs. So any base that has hog defects or hasn't properly set itself up to defend against hogs automatically gets 3-starred. And you want to shut that down. You want to keep the attackers guessing so that, number one, the ideal scenario is that they push go wipe on your base, because go wipe is just nothing more than a 2-star strategy. It's a very reliable 2-star strategy, but it's also, you want to try to be able to push that. Now, if you can push that, then you will have been successful in kind of forcing that 2-star attack on your base. Now, this only really matters against clans that are kind of in that upper tier of attackers, where they understand how to assess bases, they know how to pick apart the weaknesses, and they know how to exploit them using specific strategies. Now, if you're up against a clan like that, believe me, you've got bigger problems to worry about whether or not they're going to hog you. So and you have to remember that this is a cumulative of effort. One base alone is not going to be able to do this, but if you put 40 bases on the table that all have these features, then you start to see the results of your work. Now, designing that many bases is difficult. I'm not going to lie, it's just tricky. The other thing that I noticed about the base is your defenses are in really good shape. From a point defense perspective, when you get your archer towers maxed out, you're going to start seeing a lot of improvement, along with your cannons, against attacks like Go Wipe and Go Wee Wee, because the rate of fire and the DPS, along with the higher hit points, make them pretty tough to punch through with Go Wipe. The other big thing that you have to focus on is your walls, because right now, yes, you have a lot of pockets, but it's not going to matter, because all of these junctures are still level 7 walls, which is only just a few thousand hit points. Now, the difference between these purple walls and say a Lego is something on the order of like 2,000 or 3,000 hit points. So you don't necessarily need to upgrade the entire base. All you have to do is upgrade the junction points, because that's what the troops will target as they're moving through the base. And if you don't believe me, just check through some of your replays and then look at the Go Wipe raids and look at what sections they targeted. It'll almost always be the junction points. So right off the bat, one of the things that you can do is you can take these skulls that you've invested in the core and start moving them to the junction points. When the junction points are full, then work on the core along with any of the common attack vectors for your base. So that's tip number one. Now, tip number two, great job with the double bomb placements. These are always tricky to place, and you have 8 of them, so that's fantastic. And the best part is that you've loaded all 8 of those sections up with some sort of trap. So I think that's going to be pretty effective for planning against certain types of attacks. Now, one thing I would want you to consider is that the AQ's trigger range does extend beyond the exterior of the base. So all anyone would have to do once they figured out if they wanted to go-ho your base would be to send in a BK or a golem right about here, along with some wall breakers right behind them, and then they have your AQ. The AQ's down, and then they can start up their hog raid. Now, that's if they decide they want to try to hog this base, and if they do that, the attack will come from. It could come in 2 strings, one to go this way and then one to go that way. I mean, it could come in, let's see. Yeah, I mean, if I were going to hog this base and I knew where the traps were, then absolutely I would send them in a high-low support team to take out some of these structures. Now, one of the really nice things that you did here was that you loaded up these air defenses against these to cover these defenses up here. So that's a really good job for shutting down a back 9 attack. You are a little weak to a dragon attack, but honestly, there's not much that you can really do with the dragon attack. They're spammy for a reason. But one of the things that you might want to consider, and this is kind of where the black magic of pathing comes into play, is this space right here with let's see if I can. This space right here, you can take these wizard towers and move them up. Now what that does with respect to pathing is that it creates a space between these structures and the town hall. Now an interesting thing happens with dragon raids, and let me see if I can get this up. When, let's say, a dragon goes to attack this wizard tower, it'll choose the next available structure to go in and attack that. Now, assuming these guys are down, and they've properly funneled, that leaves this Tesla. So the path would look something like this. Now, on the flip side, let's say you put the Tesla there, and then you move the wizard tower up there, and now there's all this space over here, along with some space over here. Now you can actually you've created a ring of trash that'll direct the dragons in that direction. And the same would go for in that direction. Now it's a very subtle thing, but it's one of the things that we noticed with our base designs, is that you can affect the pathing of things like dragons, troops like dragons, with effective spacing. So that's one thing that you can test out. I don't know how well it'll work, because obviously it all depends on how well they funnel. But if they get everything into a nice tight group, one of the things that I can guarantee is that they will probably end up splitting left and right and then moving through the rest of the base. Once they get to about this point, a couple will peel off into here, but you can easily counter those with a couple of bombs in these spots right over here. Now the other question that you had was what to do about your CC trigger range, because it looks like from hang on a second, it looked like from here that this cannon is the biggest problem, and from what I read, you had 4 extra wall units, and if that's the case, I would go ahead and extend these walls out 1 square. If you have 4, then that's perfect. You can push those out 1 square, and that'll even give you the ability to take some of these buildings and pop them into this corridor here. Now remember what I said about builder huts. These builder huts are probably the next most valuable piece of real estate anywhere on the map, and you want to relocate them so that they're nowhere near the common attack vectors of your base. So that means taking them out of the front side of the base and moving them to a more protected corner of the base. If you extend these pockets out just 1 space, that'll give you some space to put these builder huts inside, or just about anything. Now your placement of the storages is pretty spot on. This is a good balanced base. This will defend well against go wipe attacks if you can just fix these junction points to include those skulls. Now you're not really going to see a big improvement in the survivability of the base until you get those at least up to Legos, because you'd be surprised what a difference they make in having to fight through, just in terms of burning down time. And that's really what you want to do against any Go We raid, is to burn down time and to draw as many attacks as possible. Now, as far as the base is concerned overall, what I would say is that there's, and this is not a knock on the base. It's this would be pretty easy to 2-star from the south, and I understand that was your goal, was to keep it to 2 stars. Now what your real goal should be is getting them to the point where they're maybe eking out 45 or 50%. The bases that I've put together generally score somewhere in the 50 to 60% range. So that means from a defensive perspective, the designs are working at doing things like attacking troop pathing, and protecting the important low hit point buildings in the base. Now as far as traps are concerned, one of the other things that this will only come out in testing as you watch this base perform under different types of attacks, is that if you find that you're getting a lot of air attacks, is to load up all of your air bombs over on one side of the base. It's better to defend 1/2 of the base than using 1/4 of your bombs to kind of defend most of the base. everything that you do with the base design is a gamble. You're trying to guess what your attacker is going to do, and then coming up with appropriate countermeasures to counter those. So when we know that when we're attacking dragon, when we're getting attacked by dragon bases, that we go wizard heavy in the CCs, and that we relocate and cluster all of our air bombs. But if we are going to be seeing a mix of go wipe attacks, then you can start getting creative about the placement of your bombs. Now, again, with the way that you have the bombs laid out here, it's a gamble. It's a gamble, but you're visually, this base would deter an assessor of the base from launching a hog raid on it until they knew where the bombs were. But what's really cool about this is that they won't know any of that until they beat down like most of this base. So you want to try to protect the location of those other bombs as much as possible. But I like where you put these. There are a couple of things that you might want to consider, and these are sort of let's see. I would have to study this to see if there were options for you to move some of these defenses. But part of the issue here with the way that these defenses are laid out is that your golems have a clear path to this part of the base. They have, if let's run through a couple permutations here. Let's say a golem comes in and attacks that. The next thing that they'll attack is that. The next thing they'll move into is there, and then the next thing they'll move into is there. Now, golems are effective because they're a moving wall. They're a moving wall that allows the DPS to advance safely behind them. Now, the way that you counter that is you screw with their pathing. And the way that you screw with their pathing is by creating a chain of defensive buildings that leads them away from the core, like that, leaving your DPS open here with nothing to protect them. Now, how you do that, that's the trick. But we've come up with a couple of designs that do that pretty effectively. But just think like a golem. If you were to deploy, left, right, center, where would the golem path? If the golem were to come in from this side, where would they path? And people are so hell-bent on creating these symmetrical designs where there's absolutely a defense in every single pocket, in every single available pocket. Well, here's an interesting thought that might change the way you think about that. That's not necessarily necessary. Because anytime you put a defense there, especially like this one here, this defense connects these outer compartments to the inner compartments. So what I would call this is something like a fuse point. You could even drop, say this dark elixir storage right there, and then that would force the golems to move kind of in a serial fashion this way. And then really at that point it's up to your long-range defenses to take out whatever DPS is behind them. Now how you do that, I mean that's where all the tricks with placement come into play. But I do like the way that you work your mortars. I think these are out of range to be really effective. One of the nice things that I like about the Sucker Punch base is that there's one mortar right here surrounded by like 20,000 hit points worth of buildings. So while everything is beating down those buildings, that mortar is just picking away at the DPS along with the DPS-led troops, defense-led troops, excuse me, along with the defense right behind them. That mortar's picking away at all of those behind them. And one thing that you could potentially end up playing with, I noticed one note that you made about the Teslas kind of flanking the town halls, and I completely agree with that assessment. The point that this poster made was that he sees Teslas kind of lined up right next to, bumped up against the town hall. But if something were to get into there, that completely reduces their effectiveness because they get the town hall and then they get the Teslas. But what you can do is you can create a kill pocket, which is what this poster did here, and that's when running with the expectation that the golem or the P.E.K.K.A.s make it into there. Now there are these two Teslas on the outside shooting in, and this is fantastic, from a defensive perspective. And then you've got these mortars, raining down on that pocket. So that's a pretty good, I mean, I like it. I like that plan. And the whole idea is to get these guys put down as fast as possible to save the rest of this base and maybe push them to 49%, which would be, which would be even fantastic. So let's see if I covered all of those points. Tesla's AD seem vulnerable. I think your ADs are fine. I mean, there's not a whole lot that you can do to affect Mass Dragons except screw with their pathing using some of the tips that I mentioned earlier. Your compartments are good. Just upgrade your junction points and you'll be in a much better spot. The double giant bomb locations, again, I covered that. That was... You did a great job with placing those around, and hopefully nobody triggers them towards the end. If you can push an attack out towards the end, then you'll be in really good shape because there probably won't be any hog attacks left by then, but you never know. What else is there? Go wipe and go wee wee. C is unlurable. Yeah, I think that pretty much covers it. Let's see here. You can extend this portion out. I'm not too concerned with these X junctions, but these are some things. These are designs that you might want to consider changing up, because the problem with this particular X junction point is that if this goes down, that gives the attacker immediate access to 4 pockets, and you want them fighting through 4 walls, not 1, to get to these pockets. So this is the only one that I have a problem with. I suppose this one as well. What you can do is you can probably double up the wall units here, or offset these wall units using some of those extra walls that you have, just to make kind of this step structure here, so that if something comes into here, or if the golem beats on this wall unit, they'll only get access to this pocket and that pocket. But if they beat on this wall unit, then they get access to the core as well as this pocket. And you want them pushing to the outside. Now, yeah, if you can, just skull up as fast as possible. It really makes a difference with protecting against these attacks, because right now your base can easily be 3-starred by any brute force attack because there are just no walls to really stop them. The compartments and the placement of your defenses is really good, and it should be able to, because your defenses are so high, you should be in pretty good shape. But you're not really going to see the benefit of that until you max out these point defenses. Your splash defenses are in great shape, but definitely max out your Teslas. One of the things that we encourage in Clan is to when they come into their Town Hall, when new players come into Town Hall 9, to completely ignore their point defenses. Now, I know that sounds weird, but the recommendation that we make is obviously to work on your splash defenses first. Not so much the mortars. Mortars at level 6 are really effective. You can push these mortars off to 7 until the end, but definitely wizard towers to 7. Expos, we have a lot of debates about this. My personal opinion on this is I do the longest ones first. So I rushed my Expos to 3 right away, and I've been reaping the benefits of those ever since I got them. And Expos at 3 are a huge visual deterrent to a lot of different types of attacks. But then the other thing that I prioritize upgrading are the Teslas. The Teslas are the single most powerful point defense anywhere on the map. I mean, maybe not so much with the Archer Tower buff, but the fact that they're traps and that they have such a fast rate of fire make them one of the most effective point defenses that you have. So don't feel bad about the long upgrade times for these. You will reap the benefits for these for a long time, more so than just 1 or 2 Archer Towers or cannons. The Archer Towers and cannons, you're talking about like, my God, 12 upgrades to get them up to the point where they're useful. Whereas with the Teslas, at this point, all you have is just rip the Band-Aid off, get these up to 7, and then you'll be in good shape. As far as everything else, it looks great. Again, thanks for the question. Really glad that you decided to take on the challenge. You're not really going to know how well this is going to work until you get attacked a few times, but definitely work on those walls and let us know how this base works out for you. All right, thanks for tuning in, and I'll talk to you soon.